I'm taking in investing in his business.
Right.
South Africa, you can generate a return, but on a risk-adjusted basis, it underperforms many of its comparative markets. So one of the things you have to do is you have to de-risk the South African investment opportunity. So here's a wild idea. Pass a 2-year concession and say to each and every single global company, if you come here, set up a factory and employ 300 people or more, we're going to give you 2 years tax-free. No taxes. You pay your PAYE taxes.
It's money you don't have anyway, right?
You don't have it anyway,
Yeah.
right? But what that does when somebody puts it in a mathematical calculation is it de-risks the opportunity. You know who else has done this? My good friend Jito is doing it for the President HH in Zambia. You know what that means? They're attracting, for the first time in a long time, capital coming into their country. His Excellency Tinubu is now thinking about doing similar things for Nigeria. So what does that mean? The rest of the global market is going, let's relook at that Nigeria opportunity again.
No.
Ghana has been doing it fairly successfully for the past 2 years, thereabout. So we have to understand that, and I say this with love, South Africa today is not the South Africa that was 5 years ago. We're definitely not the South Africa that Mandela took over in 94. We just don't occupy that halo brand in the global mind space anymore, which means we have to do actual things and actually be competitive and offer a real meaningful opportunity. In the financial services space, Mauritius has pulled the rug from under our feet, following them very strongly, Morocco. In technology and infrastructure space, Egypt. Watch Egypt over the next 5 to the next 10 years. Egypt is going to look like Dubai. Just watch.
You think?
Absolutely.
Wow.
The amount of cranes
yeah.
that are, and by the way, this is an Egypt that had an Arab Spring not so long ago. Yours and my lifetime, right? In the technology space, Kenya stepped firmly into that breach. You know what's busy happening right now in capital markets? Rwanda is looking, going, we're a small country, we're landlocked with 12 million people. Very hard for us to compete on agriculture and manufacturing. So what are we going to do? We're going to become the Singapore of Africa. We want every single investor, global investor that wants to invest in Africa to come through Rwanda, Kigali. So they've set up the KIFC, the Kigali International Finance Center, and they're today working on a program to become an international finance center that can compete on a par basis with the JSC and the rest of it.
And then people say, oh, but their president is a terrible dictator, and he's that mean guy that you were talking about earlier.
You need a strong man.
You need a strong man, right?
He makes decisions. Then this is my final point. Then you could fix South Africa with just this one pill. This is the Morpheus moment, right? You could fix it by getting people to recognize that we're at a time when we need the best amongst us, not those that look like us. You've got to set aside group identity and focus on competence. So watch the performance of the Western Cape, watch the performance of Cape Town. And there is a lot to be said about Cape Town and whether or not wealth is evenly distributed and how poor people still live in Cape Town and the rest of it. Yes, those are valid criticisms. But do you know why you can level those criticisms? You can level those criticisms because the differential becomes more stark the more there is an improvement. It's the inverse in many other parts of South Africa. Just drive down William Nicol, drive on Witkoppen, and try not to hit a pothole. Yeah. And so it's difficult for you to say,
it's always compared to what?
Yes, yes.
This is always the question for anyone who raises that specter. And it's funny to me how we have different standards. So subconsciously, maybe our past is so inculcated in us that as South Africans, we go, oh, well, this party will hold to that standard, but this party will hold to that standard. This cultural group will hold to that standard, but this one will hold to this one. And we don't even realize we're perpetuating the bad policies of our ancestors on both sides because of insecurities, superiority or inferiority complexes. This is all very bad.
No, I mean,
it's really bad.
Look, don't forget, it's not a government for life, right? You can change them. So
careful. This is now we're getting into insurrection talk.
I mean, what I'm saying is, look, let's imagine you tried a different group of people around the table.
Yeah.
You have fears about what these people might do if they were ever to occupy the table, right? What would you do? You'd vote them out. So it's not as if you give them the opportunity to do this
in perpetuity,
and for the rest of your life.
But also, what have you got to lose? We've tried this table of people for a couple of years now, and what has it brought us?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. But again, it just goes back to the same basic things. that around which you incentivize people to do, they will do. So why the countries that I mentioned earlier, the reason those countries are performing is not because the people who are given the authority to do certain jobs are celestial beings that descended on the seventh day, right? It's because there are systems and mechanisms in place to make sure that if you do not perform, you're out. It's not complicated.